This is the Fluid Jobs podcast, where motorsport professionals share their journeys and offer actionable advice for breaking into and advancing in the competitive world of motorsport. Today, I'm joined by Kieran Reeves, Director of the National Motorsport Academy. We explore their flexible online programs, which are perfect for those already in the industry. Plus, Kieran shares valuable advice on gaining practical skills and building key relationships in motorsport. So, if you're looking to advance your career in motorsport, this episode is for you. Good afternoon, Kieran. And first of all, thank you very much for joining me today. Really appreciate you being here. But as we kick off this podcast, I was wondering if you could introduce yourself and kind of what you're up to.
Yeah, no problem. Nice to see you, Scott. I'm Kieran Reeves, and I'm the Director of Motorsport at the National Motorsport Academy. So here we deliver degrees, both undergraduate and postgraduate, so all the way up to master's level. And at the same time, I'm the Chief Engineer and the Team Manager of our GT racing team.
Okay, so can you just go into a little bit more detail about that? What do the programs look like? What are the students getting from those programs?
Yes, so we're quite unique, or we are unique. We deliver degrees, motorsport engineering degrees in particular, to students that are all online. So what that means is all the students are working in the motorsport industry, and then they can go onto our virtual learning studio and meet up with their tutors in a one-to-one capacity whenever they wish to. All the content of the course is on there, is on the VLS, so they can log in evenings, weekends, anything around their job, so they can study for a degree whilst also maintaining their work. Because people have kind of mortgages to pay, they may be married, etc., and they can't necessarily leave their work and go off back to university or have block release at university. So they can come and study with us in their own time in the comfort of their own home.
Fantastic. And so the typical student, are they people who are already working in motorsport, or could they be working in a completely different industry and still taking courses?
Well, we do. Majority, yes, are fully invested in motorsport. So we have people from kind of grassroots and the national championships all the way through to World Endurance, Formula One, World Rally, etc. But we do have people who are trying to make a transition. So they may be automotive engineers, either working at the manufacturer, so Jaguar Land Rover, for example, or working for a main dealer, and they're transitioning across the motorsport arena. So those also do apply with us.
We've heard that a couple of times, actually, of people transitioning from the automotive or aerospace industries across into motorsport, because, of course, a lot of the skills and degrees are fairly similar. And so if they're already working in motorsport, your students, what are the benefits and advantages of taking a course like yours? What are the students looking to achieve?
So the majority, our demographic is slightly different. So on average now, I think currently our age group is around 30. But we tend to have students from 25 plus. So what it usually is people who are trying to get promotion within their companies. So especially the guys who are working in Formula One and World Endurance, they want to move up to higher levels throughout a Formula One team, and they can't do that without a degree. So a bachelor's degree or a master's degree. So those guys come to us. Like I said before, they don't have to leave their work. They don't have to go on block release for weeks at a time. They can study evenings and weekends and maintain their job.
Understood. So these are people who might have got a job in Formula One or, high level motorsport without necessarily having the degree for that particular role, and they come to you to fill in the gap.
Yes. Or from the other side of it is we have the people who are working kind of in the national championships at the lower levels and want to transition into those either the bigger teams within their championships or make the progression into World Endurance and Formula One, British touring cars, teams like that. So, or they want to go and work in the factory as an engineer and designing the cars. So we do have guys at that level as well who want to transition and progress through the motorsport hierarchy.
And are they also doing that because the role requires a degree for that particular role?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So it's getting the certification, it's getting the degree, so they can move. I mean, of course, doing the learning, right?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. So I suppose you've kind of seen the journey of many people working in motorsport and before, actually, I suppose, before they get into motorsport. And this podcast is all about helping people either move into motorsport or move
Yep.
up in motorsport
Yes.
roles.
Yep.
So I guess as you've had access and contact with so many students over the years, is what's kind of the main thing that stands out to you about the people who actually go on to achieve the most in motorsport and have the most successful careers?
The main thing is obviously the dedication and knowing what you're getting into, because obviously, as we all know, a lot of people say how glamorous motorsport is, and we know actually once you're there and you're working the very long hours in the pit lane, etc., it's not
I
all
was going
glamour.
to. Those people have never been to Snetterton on a rainy Wednesday in
Yeah,
December.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. So you need that dedication, but the main thing is as well is is to kind of decide relatively early what you love. So what kind of race series do you love? What would you like to work in? And there's no point trying to transition or get a job with a rally team, and eventually you want to really be doing world endurance. So it's about picking the kind of race vehicles that you love to start with, and starting with those national championships, and again a foot in the door with those teams. Even if you go along and volunteer for the weekends and do it for free, just to get some knowledge and practical skills. That's an ideal way to start heading into your motorsport career.
Absolutely. And then, I mean, do you have experience in speaking with the students as they're going through that application and the interview stages? And what advice would you give somebody who's heading into that kind of point of their job finding journey?
Yeah, so for typical students, obviously some of the larger teams, and again, I don't want to keep mentioning Formula One all the time, but some of the larger teams, especially in Formula One, have graduate opportunities. So you can apply for some graduate roles and internships. But really, the main thing is if you're looking to transition into a higher role and it's something you need a degree for, of course, the university course you've done is obviously the main aspect of that part. But it's to gain practical skills first and foremost. Make sure you've been in pit lane, or if you're going to be a designer, you've done some design work with teams. And try and start filling out your CV early, even if before you start thinking about going into work. From your first year of university, start trying to get opportunities, and like I say, volunteer if you need to, and really pad out your CV for that experience. That's great. There's a lot of teams at national level who would be delighted to have students turning up and helping them at the race weekend, even if you just start off making the tea and coffee and cleaning the wheels and tires, and just get a foot in the door that way. But then as you progress through and you're getting through your higher levels, like I say, graduate schemes are there. If you've chosen a race series you particularly like, go on their website, and on their website you'll see all of the race teams that are competing in that championship, and contact the teams. Whether it's turning up at a championship weekend and walking down pit lane and handing your CV out and trying to talk to people, knocking on doors or an email, whatever it may be, contact the teams and try and get into a series that you really love.
Yeah, exactly. When we've run our seminars and when we've spoken to people who are kind of just sat outside motorsport or trying to get in, they always talk
Yeah,
about it being quite difficult to get
yeah,
into in the first place. But
yes,
actually, what I don't know for sure. We need to speak to them a little bit more. But I feel like they see it as a harder challenge than it actually is, because when I've been working with race teams, if somebody emailed them and said, "Hey, I'll be there at 7 a.m. and I'm
yeah,
happy to help put the awning up and clean the wheels and tires. I'll get
exactly.
out the way other than that. I'm not going to cost you any time or any money.
Yes,
Like, can I come along?" I think
yeah,
90% of the race teams at the kind of lower level, if you go
yes,
to an F1 team or a WEC team, they're kind of in a different
of
situation.
course, of
But a
course.
national team will likely say yes to you, and that's where it begins, right? It might take some time, but
Yeah.
with all things that are worth doing, it's going to take a bit of time.
Yes, and that's the main thing, is obviously not set your sights too high from the off if you're just transitioning into motorsport. People have to understand, even for the national championships and what people may say, oh, it might just be an MX-5 or maybe this, maybe that. Someone's putting their life on the line when they get in that car, so they're not just going to let you loose, taking wheels off and put an engine in or something. So you have to expect that you go to a team, you may be cleaning the wheels, helping tidy up, etc., put the awning up, until the team builds confidence with you and you get to know each other. And then I'm sure most teams will start to allow you to pick up further jobs until you've got the experience where then you can be trusted to do things like removing the wheels, placing the wheels back on if there's a big job, or set up on the car, whatever it may be. But it's those baby steps first, and just start to build a rapport with a team, especially if somebody's just, it might be you tend to get kind of just families who turn up. There might be a dad and two sons and the daughter there all trying to help out. They're the ideal teams where you could go along and offer your services for free.
Fantastic. And that practical experience, you see that as being almost critical to opening up for a role?
Yes, definitely. It all depends in the long run where you're kind of wanting to end up in motorsport. Because what a lot of people do, especially when I talk to students of kind of the 16 to 18-year-old age range, they think motorsport is just the pit lane, working on cars in the pit lane, because of course they see F1 on telly, etc. But there's all the other people who are back at factories designing. You've got computer engineers now, computer software engineers. There's a plethora of jobs within autosport, motorsport now. So it's not just all about pit lane, where those typical mechanical practical skills come to your brain that you think you may need. You may be doing something that might be design. You may never touch a car. You may be on CAD drawing and designing. But to have the practical skill and the mechanical knowledge will aid you in the future, especially if you're even going into CAD. Understanding how something operates, or even how it bolts onto the car, is great when you're designing something new. I'm sure we've all been there before and seen things where you think this has been designed by someone who might be a great designer. Practically, unless I take the engine out, I can't install it. So it's nice to have all those practical skills and understand the underpinning knowledge behind a car and how it goes together.
I used to drive, on that same note, I drove an old Benetton F1 car, 99 Benetton F1 car for a couple of years.
Yep.
And the dampers weren't adjustable, and they were inside the bottom of the tub. And
Right.
so to do a damper change, you had to take the entire suspension apart. It took like 2 hours to change the dampers.
Yeah.
It was crazy. So yeah, exactly. Obviously the reason for that in Formula One is weight, of course, but that was crazy.
Yes.
So I know your programs are global, right, Kieran?
Yes.
We also have a global audience at Driver 61. And one of the questions that we get quite frequently is, if a student or a viewer of ours isn't in the UK, or maybe even the US or Europe, how do they go and get that practical experience? How do they find their way into the world of motorsport?
Yeah, so we do have students all around the world in many countries. And we tend to find actually some of the, like Australia obviously tend to go for the V8s and that kind of route, and they've got a good racing series and progression series under there to feed in. Feeder series. America's already well established, but kind of we do get a lot of the African countries going the rally route, and we see a lot of people going the rally route from there, and a lot of them owning their own automotive workshops, which they're the ideal candidates for our program, because they've already built the practical skills over many, many years, and now we're trying to transition. But of course, to then start moving up the ranks within motorsport, that they have to be realistic as to a point where there's definitely going to have to be a move, maybe away from certain countries and into other countries where motorsport's a lot bigger. The Middle East is coming really big now. A lot of racetracks in the Middle East, so we're seeing a lot more people apply from the Middle East. So it's starting to become really global, and almost every territory now has at least a racetrack.
Yeah, of course. And I suppose that's one of the things is, we're quite lucky in the UK that we have such a, the racetracks are so densely spread throughout the country.
Yes.
But if you're living outside, then maybe there's opportunity to look for the opportunities that come with like a sponsorship to go to a particular country, and you need to be at some point willing to go and do that.
Yes, no, of course. Eventually, that's probably going to be the career. But if you've chosen that career path, it's inevitable. That is probably what's going to happen.
Fantastic, Kieran. So, just to finish things off, is there any kind of overriding advice that you'd give to anyone listening to this podcast if they're looking to get into motorsport or move up?
I think I'd go back to what we touched on before. It shouldn't be something that everyone's scared of or thinks automatically it's a very hard industry to get into. You could pretty much look at any racetrack, especially in the UK, and the same abroad. But in the UK, if you looked at any racetrack, you'll see all the race series that are happening over the next 8-10 weeks. Go along, talk to people, offer your services for free. Of course, take a CV along with you. And as long as you've got practical skills or you're willing to learn and you want to help out for free, don't see it as like a motorsport, some higher echelon. You'll never get to it. It's available for everybody, and there's always somebody who needs help.
Fantastic advice. Fantastic advice. I think if you have the willing to go and do that and you go and prove yourselves to them and that actually you're not going to cost them a load of time or money, then, they'll say yes. And that's the first thing that you should be aiming for.
Yes, definitely.
Fantastic, Kieran. If people want to find out more about you and your company, where should they go?
So our website is motorsport.nda.ac.uk. So if you go on there, you'll find everything about our programs. Also on there is links to all our social media. So you'll find us we're on kind of X, which used to be Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. We're on all of the normal social media channels. You'll find us with just a quick search or go through our website and there's links to all of our social media.
Fantastic, Kieran. Thank you so much for your time and speak to you soon.
No problem. Great to see you again, Scott. Thank you.